Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and I'm so excited for the guest this week. I have the beautiful Tori visiting us. Hello, Tori. Welcome.
Hi.
Tori, I will get you to quickly introduce yourself. I'm sure there are a couple of Walnuts who have met you on the online space before, but for those that have no idea who you are, could you please give us a little
Little
background of who
rundown.
you are?
I'm from Wellington and I'm 35 and I've got two little girls, one who just turned 2 and one who's almost 4. Uh, and I started sort of in the online space creating beauty content 10 to 12 years ago, so quite a long time ago. And I was like really passionate about makeup and like making myself feel good, and then that sort of translated into doing makeup on my friends and family and co-workers. So then I sort of got more into the like makeup artistry space and continued doing that for a long time, and sort of, yeah, I guess that kind of developed in terms of me creating content into just more lifestyle content. And then I went vegan and cruelty free, so that kind of like changed my content again. So I was still kind of in the like beauty space, but more like talking about it like more sort of wellness, and sort of more from the perspective of like I'm an everyday girl and I like nice things and I like makeup, but I wanted to do it in a more like conscious way. And then I sort of have just continued on sort of in that lifestyle space. And then I got diagnosed with breast cancer at the end of last year. So I kind of have just been navigating that journey for the last 6 months. But yeah, more recently after chemo and surgery, I'm now cancer free. So that's been an amazing outcome. And I've still got some treatment to go. But yeah, it's just kind of trying to just sharing my journey now, and in the hopes that I can encourage other people to, you know, get checks and to know their body, so that if anything different sort of happens, they can be onto it straight away so we can get the best outcome.
Absolutely. And I think it's just so, yeah, two things. I find, creating and putting yourself out there on social media is just being a walnut in general, because it actually takes a lot. Like, I have a lot of love to give for content creators. And then on the other end of that is your diagnosis and what you've kind of been going through in the past year. Like, again, how brave and bold, and thank you for sharing that with us. So I'm really
Thank
looking
you.
forward to this conversation, Tori. But were you in the age of when you were doing makeup and stuff? Was that like the Shan XO YouTuber vlogger era? Like, did you do any of
I,
that kind
I
of thing?
she definitely inspired me a lot, like in her like era with, Lauren Curtis and like Karina Pocus and stuff like that. They were all just like, I was like watching all their videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of like was inspired by that and came in sort of probably more on the like back end of that era.
Yeah.
And I did create YouTube videos and stuff, but I found that it wasn't really my passion. And I think I've always liked creating like sort of more like static images and like, yeah, so I found it quite difficult to like commit to keep creating videos where my heart wasn't really in it, like
Yeah.
makeup videos, I think. And I also moved to Fiji for 2 years in that time, and it was quite difficult to, like get products over to Fiji unless I was like coming back to New Zealand. And then it was so hot and I didn't want to wear makeup, but I felt like I had to like
Yeah.
create the content. So that's kind of where my content shifted, because I just wasn't really wearing makeup as much anymore, and my passion for like creating videos and stuff wasn't really there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tricky business as well, like because I really don't know what Walnut Wednesday is. So sometimes I struggle with how do I put myself in a box because I'm in like five, like with all of the
Yeah,
different
yeah,
Walnut Wednesday
yeah,
is. But my sister all the time, she's like, you just need to be doing vlogs of things. And like, I don't think people realize just the actual amount of sheer effort it takes to set things up. Like, I mean, I do effort with podcasts and things like that, but to
yeah,
like bring a tripod around and follow me doing my makeup or brushing my teeth and then doing a voiceover, like you need a lot of time. And as a
yeah,
corporate worker as well, it's like I don't think people realize the work that goes into it. And yet your heart does have to be into it. So I'm really glad that you've fallen into the lifestyle category where you can kind of just be you online.
yeah. I feel like that's a much more comfortable space, and it like also is more engaging for your, followers or viewers or whatever, because you're being you, and it's not like you
Mm.
feeling like, oh, this is a text, like, but it can be demoralizing when you put lots of effort into creating something, and then people like might view it, but they kind of just swipe by, and it's like,
Mm.
it's really not that difficult to like it,
Yeah.
it's just so helpful to me and not much effort for you. And
Yeah.
so sometimes I'm just but when you do share something and you do get engagement and it's like people are really enjoying it, it is really like, it's quite fulfilling. And that's when
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, this is really what I enjoy doing. And you
Yeah.
want to spend more effort and time into producing that type of content.
Yeah. And do you just on the social media thing, did you used to work full time and then now you just do what you do, or do you have another
Um,
job on the
so
side or
I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. So I've been
Mhm.
freelancing for that for nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've kind of had to like um make it like it's not a full-time thing, just in terms of where we're at in our like journey and Simon's work commitments, and like, now having the kids and stuff. So I do what I can, and I try not to take on too much, because it just, you know, it would be too much for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I juggle my design stuff and I juggle the content stuff. Um, but also now obviously going through treatment and that sort of thing, I haven't been able to, have as much capacity as I did before. So just taking a back seat for a while on the work stuff
Mhm.
and just
Yeah.
kind of creating stuff that I really want to.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, so boldly. I'd like, yeah. When I came across Walnut on Tori's Instagram, which I will link in the show notes and everything, is a video that made me just like hit me in the feels. And it's all about how Tori, you found out about cancer, found the things, all the things. Can we dive into that a little bit and
Yeah.
like let's just go a little bit scuba divey here because I feel like as a person who I've had like cervix things and I've had to be biopsied and it's a scary time when you get told that you're not normal or that something is wrong with
Yeah.
you. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, I'd love to just get a little bit into the weeds on that and how that kind of felt for you. So
Yeah.
you basically started with you felt a lump in your breast after doing
Yeah.
a bit of like weight loss stuff and we're just having a
Yeah.
feel around.
Yeah, exactly. It just felt like to me it appeared overnight, but and what actually had happened, it had been there for they think 6 to 12 months. So
Wow.
just because of that like chance that I had, lost the weight quite quickly, it had made the lump more obvious. And
Mm,
yeah, I honestly was thinking this can't be anything. Like it won't be anything. I'm too young to have breast cancer, like, you know.
right.
So yeah, I was definitely in that mindset of like, oh no, I'm just doing that what my due diligence and like getting it checked. But by going to see the specialist and that sort of thing. And then when he said to me, yeah, it's a 40% chance that it's not benign, because we couldn't even say the cancer word. We were just like terrified.
Yeah.
That's kind of when it started to sink in, like actually this could be something that's going to be pretty life changing, or. like
Yeah.
pretty intense. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then so then you've carried on with getting treatments and stuff. What is that like having to go in at like our age and into like
Yeah.
a place for, is it chemo that you're getting? Like
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
what does that feel
So
like?
like I was pretty terrified leading up to it because the turnaround is really quick. They want to get you started on treatment straight away. For the type of cancer that I had, it's very aggressive, so it can grow really quickly. So they wanted to get me into treatment the following week. So you kind of don't
Mm.
have a lot of time to wrap your head around it. And we actually ended up taking it 2 weeks so that I could um, have fertility treatment. And so I began chemo sort of the 3 weeks later, and it was quite terrifying. And I sort of would just have moments where I would just cry. And but having the two girls, like I just found that I couldn't let myself wallow or like get too deep in it because I just needed to be strong around
Mhm.
them. I didn't want them to feel like there was something terribly wrong or that, the whole mood of the house was just like, really down and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely a lot of emotional moments. But when I actually came to do the treatment on the day, I took my dad, my mother-in-law, and Simon, and I sat down. The nurses, like, they're just so kind and so lovely, and like we were all just trying to keep it light and like,
Yeah.
and they put the IV into my arm and they started the chemo, and they didn't even say like, like this is it. This is, like make a big deal. They kind of just put
Yeah.
it in, da da da, walking away. And then they were like, oh, yep. So you've had the first part done. Like, you're doing well. Like, and it wasn't that as terrifying as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I think the unknown and how the treatment's going to affect you is so scary. And once you've sort of been through the first treatment and you kind of know, okay, like it absolutely smoked me in terms of my fatigue. Like I was so exhausted. I couldn't walk up the stairs without being really like puffed.
Mm.
Um, I didn't get nauseous and that sort of thing. So once I sort of figured out my tolerance, it was a lot less scary than it initially was.
Oh, that was my sort of like next question because obviously in the movies when people are getting chemo and things, they're like throwing up everywhere and they're like looking really like
Yeah.
frail and everything. I mean, can relate to the walking up the I walk
Yeah.
5 steps and
Yeah.
get puffed now in my condition, but
Yeah.
that's really nice to hear that you kind of didn't get super nauseous and were kind of like, I like that wording, like figuring out your tolerance levels and seeing what's like your bad or your not even just knowing what
Yeah.
your normal is a really good thing to for self-awareness, right? But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what kind of yeah, what was the after your first chemo sort of like apart from being, being puffed and
Yeah. So
fatigued?
I just was around family a lot.
Yeah,
I was just kind of left to sleep, watch TV, just eat what I could, the doctors and that were that really onto it in terms of like anti-nausea medication. They give you all the like medication to prevent you feeling ill. And I know some people do feel ill. Personally, I didn't. But yeah, I just really had to lean on my family and my friends and actually having them step up and be there for me and like people that I didn't know would do that, stepping up and being there for me was like such an amazing realization that you've got people in your corner that love you and will help you through these times. And yeah, so it was sort of like for me, it was like 6 days post treatment of just feeling like very low energy and not really having an appetite. But then sort of after that, I picked myself up and I would go for a walk or, go
yeah,
for an easier gym class.
yeah,
And just like once I started moving again, I just started feeling a lot better. And I felt like being, when I was diagnosed, I was in the best shape in terms of my fitness that I've ever been in my life. And
yeah,
so I just am so grateful to myself for like all the work I'd put in to allow me to be in a position to be fighting fit, literally fighting fit.
Mm.
to get through it all in the best way I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm
Yeah. And
just, yeah.
yeah, that's what I want to share to people is like we shouldn't wait for something really bad to happen before we really look after ourselves. Like you just never know what's around the corner, and that is a bit like, not the greatest thing, but you just don't. And if you are in a position where you've looked after yourself, you can fight for yourself and for your family as well.
Hmm. And that's where, like,
Yeah.
even just mental resilience that you get from sort of even from physical training and stuff just helps build that, like, self-love, and that, like, you want to back yourself, you want to fight for
Yeah.
yourself, you want to, like, be your first number one fan before the other people, and then that will naturally, the other external stuff will naturally, organically
Yeah.
come to you. You
Yeah.
mentioned sort of like having all the people sort of step up in your corner. I'd love your advice. I'm kind of in this weird phase where I have to start, like, I know the concept of it well, and in my walnut journey I've had to do that quite a lot, is to ask for help and things like that, and I know the logistics of it, but having
Mm,
to physically ask for people to do stuff for me when I'm so used to being and I imagine for yourself as well, being a mother, the person that does
mm,
things, just
yeah.
naturally does the things. How did
Yeah.
did that feel for you? Like, was that a bit of a process, and having to just really
Yeah.
lean into, I have to look after myself to be the best version of myself? I'd
Yeah.
love to know how that kind of felt for you.
Yeah. I think that's probably something that I'm still kind of like reconciling. Like
Yeah.
it's I feel like when you have people who want to do those things for you and they're asking, I found it much easier to accept the help when they're
Mm,
offering. I have found it, like you say, more difficult to reach out and say, hey, like, can you please do this for me? I really need this. And because sometimes I feel like I've asked that and been met with hesitation. And
mhm.
then it's like maybe it's beyond that person's capacity to help me in that instance. And I've really tried to like not take things super personally if somebody hasn't been able to do what I've asked or offered when I've thought perhaps they might in the first place. So I think, yeah, it's definitely accepting help from people when they're offering it. Um, but also, I think, in a way, being prepared to do things yourself as well. So it's kind of like, yeah,
A
yeah.
fine
It's
balance.
been, yeah, it is, and it's been interesting in terms of like people I thought might have helped more, perhaps were not as available, and people that
Yeah.
I didn't expect that were really just there every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I
Interesting.
said, it's kind of beyond, people might not be able to help you in the way that you need.
Yeah.
And like, I also found too that like practical help was just so invaluable, like having people to look after the kids or to cook us meals because I was too unwell and then Simon was busy looking after the girls, like
Mm.
those sorts of things were like just so special and so valued as opposed to like kind of flowers and that's like a well, like people are wishing you well or they're sending their like thoughts to you, but
Mm.
it's like I don't at the moment even have capacity to like look after some flowers that arrived. Like I'm like in bed, like having my food and stuff brought to me, like I'm just not, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I would have probably done the same thing. I would have sent flowers, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, it's been an interesting journey of kind of like learning what is valuable and important in these times. Yeah, but that kind of makes me seem a bit ungrateful because I'm
No,
not
no, no.
ungrateful and I appreciate like people's thinking of me, but there are more practical ways I think to help in these
Definitely.
scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think you sound ungrateful at all. I think that makes a lot of sense, and people don't talk about that kind of aspect, and also just how important some of those, like, physical presence and being there actually really does make an
Mm.
impact and a change on someone who is going through a bit of like healing and support and stuff
Yeah.
in many
Yeah.
different ways. So yeah, don't feel like
Okay.
you sound like that at all, because you sounded like a human being. And yeah.
Okay.
um
That's good.
Tori, I wanted to talk a little bit about like the fertility kind of stuff. In the reel that you shared with us on Instagram, you sort of mentioned at the end there where you hadn't quite finished um making your family yet, and what that kind of, like, you almost had to make some kind of weird decision on the spot to for your future. And I remember when I said earlier I had to have that like cervix thingy mahoo.
Mhm.
I remember the doctor saying to me like, "Oh, and just a side effect of this is, um, you might have miscarriages, and so
Oh,
you need to decide if you want me to biopsy or not. You can decide sort of right." And I was sort of taken aback because I was very young back then. I wasn't really thinking of having kids or anything, and I had to make this weird like on the spot decision to go ahead and check for my like future, but make also
mm.
a decision for my future. And I mean, it was a fleeting moment, feeling and thought, but I would love to ask how that kind of went for you. Obviously, it's a much more dire situation that you were sort of going through, but um, can you just talk to that piece a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah. So when we went in, to talk to the doctor, and he, said, "Hey, Victoria, you've got cancer." And like, I have a good friend who has recently been through the same cancer type as me. And
Oh,
she's, I think she might be 3 years older than me, 2 to 3 years older than me. And she's come out the other side, and she's thriving. She's doing amazing. But what I knew of her journey was that cancer took away her third child. And
mm,
so I didn't really understand what that meant. So, because I hadn't really spoken in depth with her about it. So when I got told I have cancer, and I said, "Oh, what about like, us having more children?" And he's just saying, "Well, you might not be able to," like, it quite bluntly.
yeah.
And what I didn't understand was the type of chemo that I had. There was a 30 to 70% chance it would destroy my egg stores. So there's a very high chance that my eggs are gone. So you have an option that they can put you into like a chemical menopause. So they put this injection into your stomach, into your abdomen, and it releases some hormones and essentially puts you into menopause to prevent you from ovulating. So it tries to preserve as much fertility as possible.
Right.
And so I didn't understand this. I just didn't really know. So when they said, "Oh, you should talk to the fertility doctor," if you're the other oncologist is happy for you to delay treatment, then that's fine. So I actually knew that my fertility doctor through people throughout the year. So I was really happy that I could have a conversation with her before actually having the appointment with her. And essentially, we decided that we would try to harvest as many eggs as possible to freeze, so that I would, if on the other side of this, I decided I wanted to try to have another child, that
Mhm.
if I couldn't conceive naturally, then I can potentially use my frozen eggs that I've got. So I was still went along to that appointment, not realizing that I was probably going to have my egg stores destroyed. I just kind of thought, "Oh, well, I'm going to be going through treatment, and then I'm going to have to be on long-term meds for like 5 years. So by the time I've finished these medications, I'm going to be like 42 years old, and
Mm.
it will be a lot harder for me to conceive at 42 as opposed to 35." But yeah, so we did that. We harvested some eggs and froze some eggs, and that in itself was a whole, like, as you say, like on the spot, it was like 2 weeks of just injections and appointments, and like, where they do the internal scans, and like, it's just mentally a lot to go through when 1 week you're absolutely not worried about your fertility at all, and then all of a sudden you have to like stress out about if you're going to be able to have or to try to have another
Mm.
child, like,
Yeah.
and so that was really a lot to process. And I still think now I haven't processed a lot of it. I think I've been like surviving, treading
Yeah.
water, and I'm gonna have to deal with all of those emotions in depth once I've sort of finished the treatment that I'm going through.
Hmm.
But when I spoke to the surgeon slash oncologist the other day, when he was like really, really happy with the news that I had, that, there's a really low risk of recurrence and everything. And then when I said to him, hey, like, is there a chance that I could try to conceive, sooner than 5 years time? And it would require me coming off those long-term medications enough for me to try to conceive. And then if I didn't conceive naturally, go through IVF and then,
Mhm.
be pregnant and then be breastfeeding. So I don't know, there might be 1 to 2 years of me not being on that medication, and that just increases my risk of recurrence. And it's like you have to kind of like toss up, do I want to try? Will I regret not trying? Do I
Mm.
want to increase the risk of the cancer coming back? So there's so many like things that Simon and I will have to really work through. And yeah, that I have to be off chemo for a year before it's even a consideration. So I have a year to kind of like really think about it. So I'm just at the minute, you know, not actively thinking about it. I'm just going to do my radiation and then continue on with my other treatments, and then focus on that when I've got the brain power to
Yeah.
really think about it. Because what the doctor did make a big point was that I'm 35. I might have another 50 years of life, 50 years
Mm.
plus, and it is a long time. So like there's of course there's chance for the cancer to come back, or I could get a different type of cancer, or like, I got a lot of life left, touch wood. So you kind of have to like really weigh up, you know, your choices, and all considering hugely that I have a family at the moment, and I have to be here for them, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, it's wild, and it's stuff that I just never thought I would be thinking about, but here
Oh,
we are.
honestly, yeah, like I've like found myself getting super emotional. It's just like so much like maths and food
Yeah,
for thought and things to just car park while you're like obviously your nervous system is probably still processing the fact that you had this diagnosis in the first place.
yeah, I
Um,
think so. Yeah,
so there's just so
yeah,
much going on. It just feels so heavy and oh my gosh, you're just so amazing for being here and chatting about this so openly and like not bursting. I'm sure that you've had your emotional times and everything, but like I
yeah.
literally feel like bawling my eyes out on your behalf right now. It's just you're just so brave. I just so
Thank
much
you.
love to you and your family. And um you mentioned in that video as well, you know, thinking about the family while at the same time thinking about future fertility and family things. Also thinking about the family that you do have and the children that you do have now and juggling those two like polarizing feelings of like I'm really
Mm,
happy and I love what I have, but I also do want more and I
mm.
might not be able to have that. Like that's just a
Yeah,
lot, man. Oh my goodness.
yeah, and it's a lot, and I think it has really made me aware that like I have been blessed in my fertility up until now, and
Yeah.
that there are just so many people that struggle with fertility. And
Yeah.
it's just, until you go through that, you can't understand what that's like. And I may still have options. I still am hopeful,
Mm.
but there are people who don't. And so now I'm just so much more aware of being cautious when I speak about it and speak to particularly women, like,
Yeah.
I mean, men struggle too. But, just I've had so many people sort of reach out and say, it took me 4 years to conceive, or like, I've had to, do this for the best of my family, and it's taken away our option of being able to carry another child or whatever. And it's like, there's so many people going through that kind of stuff. And it's just, we don't I don't think have enough awareness or like in general for people that are going through that, So
Mm.
I hope to be able to share more of that too, like when I do speak about it on my platforms, to encourage people to be kind with other people, and like you just don't know what other people are going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that kind of
Yeah.
ties into that whole like when you put like even putting yourself out there on social media and things like that, and how, yeah, you just so beautifully are so authentically yourself and talking about real things that you're going through and probably other people are going through too. And it's not just like the Fitspo on Instagram and everything. Like it's that, but there's other depths there as well. So yeah, you're just so divine and amazing, and I'm just so
Oh,
glad we had this conversation, Tori. Oh my goodness.
thank
Where
you.
where can the Walnuts listening find you if they're like if they haven't met you before, like we said earlier, on the
Yeah.
social medias?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram, victoriafaith.co.nz,
Mhm.
and I'm on Facebook too. And I've started diving into TikTok, but I feel like that's another beast. And I really enjoy watching TikToks, but the whole like, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But I feel like if I want to get more of my message out there, I probably could do that quite well on TikTok. I feel
Mhm.
like room there's room for people to see your content more than there is these days on Instagram. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely something I'm thinking about, but mostly on Instagram. And that's where I plan on putting my videos about all of this stuff on there. And I think with my first one, it was really like well received and people found it helpful. And I just hope to be a resource for people that, unfortunately, if it does happen to them later, that they can refer back to my page and get more information. Because when I got diagnosed, I kind of, my first place that I was looking at was Instagram, because
Mm.
if you Google breast cancer or whatever, it's mostly women that are like 50 plus
Mm.
and not many people younger. And so having like finding that resources on Instagram was super valuable to me. And I hope that I can do that for other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, even in this conversation, you've mentioned that you had a friend like sort of similar age, that had gone through the same thing. Like that's made me be like, oh my God, Walnut, we need to like go and get our like boobies fondled and check them and
Yes,
all the things.
absolutely.
Um
Yeah. I
it,
think it's just so important to know your own breasts, so that if it is anything different, you know straight away. It's like,
yeah,
it's not even like feeling for lumps or anything. It's just getting to know you, so that if something is different, you can be on top of it straight away.
absolutely. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um Before we kind of like wrap up, Tori, and I ask you sort of my token question, is there anything else left on your heart that you feel like you want to share with the walnut that's listening to us today?
Uh, I think just if we can all practice like gratitude and just being really grateful for the things that we have, and also for our health and like our bodies, because they're so amazing, and to like really treat your body and yourself with love that you would share for other people. And
Mm,
that is just so important, like we spoke about, like looking after yourself so you can look after other people as well, and just
yeah.
really appreciate and be well for you, like be take care of yourself, I think is, so important. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's yeah, it's a whole thing when you're a person who I call myself a recovering people pleaser, a person who's always been doing the things for the other people, and to finally like look back in the mirror and be like, oh, what do I actually need and want? Like it's a whole that's a whole other podcast episode in itself.
Yes.
So that's really
Yeah.
great advice. Thank you very much. Um, Tori, I ask all my guests that have been on Walnut Wednesday a token question. So I'd love to ask what you think. But what does being
Mm.
a walnut mean to you?
Well, I did think about this, and I thought, like, for me, a lot of it has been feeling the fear but doing it anyway. And I think that relates to a lot of different things, and whether that be, you know, going to the gym for the first time and being afraid, but just doing it anyway, or making a choice about how you want to move forward in your career, what makes you happy, like being scared, just do it anyway. If you get diagnosed, it's fucking scary, but
Mm.
just lean into that. You feel the fear, but you just do it anyway. And that's how you will, to me, like be brave, move on, like move forward. I mean, like the only way is right through it. That is key. Just yeah, doing it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I have tears. I have goosebumps. I have all the things. It's
Oh,
so beautiful, and it just entwines so much with Walnut Wednesday. We talk a lot about, yeah, walking with the fear and like shitting your pants feeling, but being
yeah.
accomplished of it on the other side when you do big or
Yes.
small little like feats. um, thank
Yeah,
you so much.
absolutely. Oh, thank you for having me. Honestly, it's been great.
Oh, I just really love this. And Walnut, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share, tag us. I will put all of Tori's information in the show notes. And thank you for your time and for listening today. And if you have any questions, just reach out. And yeah, again, Tori, what actual like divine bloody inspiration you are. Just thank you so much for being so courageous and sharing all that you're going through. I just like, yeah, so much love for you, and I'm
You.
looking forward to. Is it? I'm not excitedly looking forward to. I mean, I know that it's heavy, but just watching your journey as it continues on, and just a big thanks from the world for sharing
Oh,
this.
thank
It's
you.
just so important. It's important to have chats like this. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Have a happy Walnut Wednesday, Walnut, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.